Hi, and welcome to Stitch Skills Saturday. I'm Jennifer from Sewing Machine Warehouse, and I want to share different things with you every week, little tips and hints for your sewing machine and to make your sewing a lot better. So today we're going to talk about thread and spool caps. People often don't understand that spool caps are one of the most important things you do, and so is the choice of thread. So there is actually a right spool cap for each thread and how you actually put it on your machine. So we're going to talk about that. So this is a spongy pad. Some of you will have a felt pad or a different kind of pad, but the pad goes at the back of the spool pin, so then you put your thread on it and hold it nice and tight up on there. What holds it nice and tight? That would be a spool cap. So the rule for spool caps is spool caps need to be larger, just a little bit larger than the actual spool of thread. We don't want to have it super big like this because then we have other problems with the thread catching at the end of it, but we don't want it so small that it doesn't go around the edge of the end of the spool cap. And that's because sometimes there's stuff on the edge of the spool cap. Older spools have cuts in them, and the regular ones, it can have little burrs and nicks on them, and that can catch the thread and impede your thread flow. So you're always going to want to choose a spool cap that's just a little tiny bit bigger than the spool of thread that you're using. Okay, this one here would be the big one. So we go around here like this. Now, if you have one of these cones and you're like, what kind of spool cap do I put on that? That's actually one of these. It looks funny. You're like, it was in your bag. You have no idea what it is. That goes in here. You put this on your spool pin and it goes here and it holds that and keeps it from laying down, and it holds it in the right position. It also keeps it nice and tight against that spool pad at the back. Okay. There's also two kinds of thread. There's cross-wound. If you look at this thread here, you can see it crisscrosses versus this one that's straight wind. And straight wind just goes back and forth, back and forth. Cross-wound threads like to go up. So if you've got a thread stand or something like that, if you've got a vertical spool pin, that's a good choice for these kinds of threads because it's cross-wound. These kind here, they like to lay down, and that's why they like the spool cap. Okay. So I've got 4 choices here, and every brand has a little bit different spool cap. These ones happen to be Brothers spool caps. This happens to be a Bernina pad, but it doesn't matter. Your machine came with the right kind of spool caps for your machine. The next thing I want to talk about is thread. And quality thread is always going to be the best object that you could possibly use. Dollar thread is not worth the dollar that you're going to pay for it. You're going to pay for it in the end with cheap thread. Cheap thread does not go through your machine well. It does not last long and is not going to go for a long time. Another thing is, so this thread is actually a cheap thread, and it's also old. And when you get into it, it's super brittle. So the test for thread for me is I go along, I grab it, and I pull it. I can pull it as easily as that. This is not going to hold my pants together well, right? I'm going to bend over and I'm going to be suddenly embarrassed wherever I am. So you want a good quality thread that is designed for sewing, and just don't think, oh, I want that cheap thread over there in that dollar bin, because you're not going to be happy with that. We have a lot of people that like to use big cone thread. I need a big spool of thread. I need a big spool of thread. Honestly, this big spool of thread usually gets dry and is brittle before you can ever use all of it. This is designed for an overlock machine. It is designed to go through at 4 spools a thing, and there's four spools at a time, and there's way more thread going through the machine, and that's why you put it on a bigger cone. Most of the time, this is a lower quality thread. There are some companies that make a really good quality thread that you can use on your serger, and it will go through your sewing machine, but you do need to make sure you put that up on right. And the way you do that is it needs to go on a thread stand. It needs to go on a vertical thread stand that will let the thread go here and then go over to the machine. If you don't use this and use a cup or use anything else and try and pull it up, you're going to get tension as that thread kind of pulls off, and it can actually cause skip stitches. It can cause broken needles. It can cause you to damage your machine. So these are the tips for thread and spool caps. Make sure you find your spool caps and get your thread out there. I hope you enjoyed our Stitch Skills Saturday today. Make sure you like, follow, and share, and comment on what you might like to see in the future, and we can add that to our list. Have a great day.